Hello. Lesson 2 from the Leland AI Bootcamp was all about prompt engineering and context engineering. I'll go through a little bit, but just as a reminder, this is where we start. Understanding the infrastructure beneath AI is the key for getting good prompts, which is the key for getting good outputs, right? And I mentioned this briefly in my last video, but this is the transformer model. This is all mathematically based, right? So it's all a probability of based on the temperature here, which is kind of the measure of randomness of which of these probabilities you're going to get. And the sampling, um, how many options that you want. So for example, let's say finish this sentence. All I want for Christmas. Now let's do temperature set to 0.1. What is it? Pop K set to 3. So we don't want many options to choose from. We always want to choose the most obvious one. So we use these model settings. Should be pretty quick. I don't know what thinking it has to do with this. But the idea here is you. There you go. All I want for Christmas is you. So then it's like, would you like me to try other famous variations such as is my two front teeth? So those are, with the model settings, we only want the most obvious one. However, if we come in here and we do the temperature set to 10, pop K set to, let's set this to 20. Let's see how it changes. Now this should be a little bit more creative in terms of what we want for Christmas, right? Because if we go back to here, we know that if we have a higher K, higher temperature, it could be anything. So let's see. Is a synchronized swimming routine performed by 300 robotic pineapples in a sea of molten chocolate? That is quite more random. So that's the idea between the model settings, temperature and pop K. And I learned that in this next week, and I also learned some other advanced prompting techniques. So I'll get into that. Now, before I get into all of that, though, I want to introduce you to a feature of Gemini, and I think it's a feature in a number of them, called Gems. Now, what this is you can set some system instructions for Gemini, and it will answer you in that way. So based on what I learned in this second session of the Leland Bootcamp, I set up a prompt consultant gem that I wonder if I can. Okay, let me. Yeah, okay. I set up this gem to guide me through crafting a prompt to get the output that I need. One of the frameworks that we learned was the ROCE framework: role, objectives, context, and examples. Right? When you give a prompt to any chatbot, you need to give it a role, an objective, the task that you want to do, context, any guidelines or guardrails or constraints that it has, and examples. Now this gem of mine will not generate a prompt for me until it has clarity on those 4 pillars. There's a process, analyze all these things, and then help me identify what prompt to give the actual LLM, right? Now, in addition to having these system instructions here, I can also give it some knowledge, a knowledge library. And I'm going to use these to talk about the next aspects. So I gave it this model settings instruction. Now this this links to the transformer explainer that we just talked about. This is where it sets temperature, the top P, the top K. And top P is another population type of setting. So the instructions for the gem are when I prompt for a specific task, locate the task category that best matches their result request in the table below. So that's here. Use the corresponding temperature, top P, top K, and the recommended model settings. Now the parameter definitions for temperature, it controls randomness, like what we talked about. 0 is very deterministic, and 1 is very creative. Top P, it filters the cumulative probability of token selection. So this is, whereas top K limits the sample to the top X, or top K, top K, most likely tokens. What top P does is it only allows for a number of token selections based on how likely they will be. So top K is a specific number of possible samples. Top P limits it to, okay, I only want the top 95%, etc. So those are lower values, reduce diversity, because if I only want the top 10%, I reach that a lot quicker than I would the top 95%. So it's another population sampling type of setting. Now, like we mentioned before, for a more deterministic and logical, like coding and debugging, we want only the most precise. For something like role-playing or chatting or brainstorming or creative writing, we want higher randomness for more creativity, right? And so it has this structured here, so precise and logical, some balanced and structured, and then creative and open-ended. So my gem will reference this model settings document, identify the best model setting based on what I need from the prompt, and suggest that to me as part of the prompt. The next section that we talked about actually in the Leland Bootcamp were some AI like tips and tricks, how to get the best out of the chatbot. And that's in the next prompt strategy library that I included for Gemini. So during the strategy match phase, which matches somewhere in here, strategy match technique. Should be in here. Yep, the strategy match. Okay, yeah. So it's before drafting. Scan the prompt strategy and select the best fit. There's a lot. There's a lot of strategies. I copied and pasted, but I understand what they are. So for chain of thought, the LLM will think step by step and break the problem down. So for example, let's actually I'm going to open up a new Gemini chat. What is a problem? How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck? Good chuck wood. All right, let's do chain of thought. I think he said we could just do chain of thought. And what that should pull out is it should not just answer the question, but also show us the chain of thought in answering that question, right? I wonder, can we see it? Chain of thought, likely absurd approach. Fantastic. Okay, yep, that'll be fun. Okay. All right. So first, logical chain of thought. Break down the classic linguistic riddle. I'm the actual scientific answer. First, we look at the traditional response to the tongue twister, which relies on the internal logic of the writer himself. He would chuck, he would, as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would, if a woodchuck could chuck wood. The more poetic answer is tautological and does not provide a quantifiable metric. I love that. Yep, alright. That could have stopped there and I would have been happy. And then it goes to, okay, so biological physical analysis. Oh, look, there is a study. That's great. A woodchuck would chuck approximately 700 pounds of wood. Oh my, I'm having a good day with the wind at their back. Oh, that's fantastic. Moving 700 pounds of Tesla. Motivated and biologically adapted. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. This is like this is Mythbusters right here. All right. Yeah, so chain of thought, it breaks down the answer based on what is there. So that's great. Yeah. So that's chain of thought. Probably not always quite as humorous, but it helps. It gives you the exact chain of thought that the LLM follows. I'm not going to go into all of them with that level of detail, but the first principle is, of course, deconstruct the problem to its fundamental truths, and then build a solution from there. Socratic mode, Don't give the answer. Ask guiding questions to help the user discover the answer. Just as frustrating as I'm sure Socrates was. And I'm sure if we could give some of our LLMs hemlock after discussing with them this, we would. Anyways, 3-pass analysis, draft, critique, polish, multi-perspective. This one is a really good one. Analyze it from these different perspectives. I've used this kind of in a different gem. So I have a prompt consultant, but also have a board of directors, personal board of directors. Haven't used it very much yet, but it has the family coach, the wellness strategist, the devil's advocate, and then synthesis. So that's a similar idea, is having multiple perspectives, and they kind of battle it out inside the answer, which is kind of fascinating to see. Anyways, pre-mortem, assume it's failed, figure out how. Tree of thoughts, generate a few paths, layered insight. So there's a lot of different techniques here on how to get the best out of a prompt. And I've used this prompt consultant a couple of times. In fact, let's say what I want to identify some interesting YouTube videos in the AI and compliance space. Interesting and compliance are possibly an oxymoron, but I hope not, because that's my competitive advantage. Can you help me craft a prompt for that end? It'll take a bit and go through. If you notice in part of the instructions for the gem, I requested that it ask me a few questions to clarify my prompt before I actually go in and before it goes in and makes the prompt. And that's because during my AI learning, I have learned that possibly the most important piece of advice is to know what you want before you prompt. So, like here, to ensure the prompt I craft for you, we need to clarify a few things. Specific focus. What do I want? I want how to use AI to perform compliance tasks. 2, what is the AI's role and output? Research assistant or talent scout? What did I ask? I want to create interesting videos. So a content creator. 3, target audience. Let's do business leaders and beginners. And then this will craft a prompt for me that I can then copy and paste into a another. I can just copy and paste into Gemini again. But the idea here, and the idea with a lot of this AI learning that I'm doing, is building systems that don't require me to do a whole lot more, right? Because I could create a role, create a context, create an objective, create a methodology for my constraints, and these models. I could set that individually for each one. I could, or I can set up a gem to do it for me. I choose the latter. So let's take a look here. You are a top tier YouTube creative producer. Yeah, that's why these videos are so good. And you can see here temperature is 0.9 for randomness because we're brainstorming. Top K is 40, so I should get some interesting ideas. So take a new chat, copy and paste, and we enter. And after seeing this, maybe some of my next videos will be more interesting. One can hope. One can hope. It's currently analyzing video concepts. All right. So let me know if these are any good. The tool showcase. Stop reading 50-page contracts. How AI audits for you in seconds. All right. The hook. My hooks could be a lot better. Ooh, I have an image. Okay. Oh, not an image. All right. So here. Okay, yeah, so there's a core metaphor there. Oh, that's nice. Okay. So what are some... Okay, so this is interesting. However, what is the tool? Okay, standard vendor agreement. 3 hours to read and cross-reference. Audit this entire document against our company policies before this coffee gets cold. Oh, okay, that could be good. That could be good. And useful too. that would actually be really good. That would be funny. All right. Okay. And that wouldn't be too difficult either, because I could just use AI, use Gemini to create a standard vendor agreement, and use Gemini to create company policies, and then use Gemini to compare them. All right. So then there's the man, oh, human auditor versus AI who finds the hidden loophole first. All right. 3 critical compliance violations is a messy data set. All right. Okay, that could be fun. That could be fun. Okay. Yeah, so these are a lot more interesting than my videos. Not because they were evil, because they missed one sentence in GDPR update. Simple AI safety that catches these invisible disasters. All right, yeah, this could be fun. Why is it that in just a few prompts, Gemini has better video ideas than I do? This would be fun to make, though. This would be fun to make. All right, so that's a quick overview of prompt engineering, context engineering. Hope some of that was helpful. I know it was helpful for me to kind of understand how to get the most out of Gemini and out of the other LLMs. I'm excited to learn more. I wasn't super excited at the beginning of this boot camp. I thought I had overpaid. I especially the first lesson, the first couple of homework assignments, I was like, this is what I did in my first general AI overview course that I built using Gemini, right? I just said, hey, build me a course, and it built it. But this context engineering, prompt engineering stuff, really, really useful. We're getting into some content creation next week, and eventually into some automation, which I'm excited for the week after that. So I'm excited to keep learning. If you're familiar with Leland, I would recommend their AI Mastery Bootcamp so far, and it's only been a couple of times. So best of luck on your own AI journey, and I wish you the best.